Hey everybody, welcome, welcome to Hidden Horror. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate that. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to Hidden Horror. I want to bring you some information if you weren't aware that there could possibly be a serial killer in Austin, Texas. Um, this this particular story, I can kind of relate to it because when I was looking into Jeffrey Dahmer, um, and I have a little collection on him on my Hidden Horror Facebook, no, I'm sorry, YouTube channel. But there's links to Facebook as well if you want to go back. I like the playlist because you can go right to it, but it reminds me of Jeffrey Dahmer because something that Jeffrey Dahmer did, he used the nightlife to kind of conceal his intentions. He would go out and try to pick up men from different bars and everything, and he would bring them back with the intent to unalive them. So this story kind of triggers in me some of those thoughts and recounting Jeffrey Dahmer's behavior, his mindset, his intentions. And I do think, in my opinion, they have a serial killer. But I want to bring the information to you. Um, it's about 2 years of deaths at this lake, but it's really not about the lake, even though the lake may be, I don't want to say this harshly, but the area where the bodies are left. Um, it's proximity, right? Um, it may be someone wanting to have a call card, a name. A lot of people are labeled after so many deaths. They may label that serial killer, give them a name. So um, that helps to keep the number of deaths and bodies connected to one area. And my interest is that this area is close to that vibrant nightlife where people are going out, people are enjoying themselves, they're having drinks, they're eating, they're meeting people. And typically in this environment, just as Jeffrey Dahmer used a similar environment, people guards are down. Sometimes people are drugging others. Sometimes people are looking to pick someone up and take them back home, things like that. And in this case, there is an underlying theory that um, the target is gay men. Again, reminds me similar to Jeffrey Dahmer, where he was seeking men. Primarily, he sought out African American males, but he was seeking someone that he could bring back home. So let's get started. The article is in BeaumontEnterprise.com. It's dated July 10th, 2024. It's titled Latest Lady Bird Lake Deaths Prompts Police Briefing. The odd thing about this case is the deaths have been, I don't want to say piling up, but this area has experienced 13 deaths since 2022. Now, granted, people have drowned in lakes and everything like that, but I don't think most of this is the case. Some of the people did have some injuries. Um, so we'll get into all of it, but let's get started. Um, the author is Robin Bradshaw. Another body was recovered over the weekend at Lady Bird Lake, while police have continued to calm the rumor flames of a serial killer in the area. The new death is number 12 since 2022. Coined as the Rainy Lake Killer, the Austin Police Department has continued to debunk rumors and went to social media for a media briefing on the latest deceased individual, a white male with injuries on the Rainey Street trial. Now, I just want to stop and say this, and we'll get the facts. But I believe when I was looking into this, which there's not a lot of reports about this in video or in writing. However, um, I get the feeling that law enforcement is only addressing the issue because they do not want people to be afraid. They don't want to concern the community with what they feel are individual deaths. So they're not going to come forward and really give a lot of details on each case. Um, but I did find something that does detail each case. So I hope I have the right article I was reading to at the time. So I hope this is the right one. But moreover, they're not linking the cases together. And I believe almost all of these people that passed away were males. I think that there was one incident where there was a female involved. But let's continue on with the article. Um, this is an isolated incident and no known threat to the public, said Officer Austin Zarling. During the media briefing, a reporter asked if the latest death was in response to a serial killer. Zarling stated, "No, we don't believe there is a serial killer at this time." So the video that I'm going to show you is going to include that statement because Law and Crime, they did an excellent job. We have about a 16-minute video I'm going to share just to go over this information. And if this is not the more detailed article, the other article I was going to share, it talked about each death individually. And I may be able to find that quickly and pull it up and go over it because I do want to go over the individual deaths so we can kind of separate each one case by case and um, you can understand a little bit better why I feel this may be an active serial killer in Austin, Texas. Okay. But let me continue. KXAN Austin created a map of the bodies where they were recovered and updates on the cause of death. The first body was recorded on July 14th, 2022. Four bodies were recovered in or near the lake in 2022, five in 2023, and three to date since February 2024. However, the latest body has yet to be added to the list. That would make number 13. All of the bodies have been identified except for the three this year, awaiting the medical examiner's report. Most of the bodies have been ruled as no foul play, accidental drowning, and only one homicide in which the suspect has been charged. So, the second article that I want to share, and I have to find it now, my apologies, goes into more detail about the individual deaths. So, let me just try. I've used like 5 different devices. So you would not believe how many things I have laid out in front of me to help me stay on top of all my individual cases and the information that I'm sharing. So I use a lot of resources. So just allow me just a moment. I'm going to try to find the second article that was more in detail. So just give me a moment. It took a lot to go through these some of these cases. Um, Sometimes it just takes a lot to figure it all out. All right. Just one moment. If I can't quickly pull it up, what I'll do is start the video and then continue to search for the article because I really like that article was detailing every individual death. I think it's important um, that I try to get as much information as I can for you. So, okay. Okay, let me try this one because the article that I was reading literally detailed every single one. Well, this one has a little bit more information. Um, I really wanted the article that detail how the person was found, when they were found, and the circumstances. This one does give us the names of all the victims. So what I'll do, I'm going to start by sharing my screen to start the Law and Crime Network video. It's about 16 minutes. That's going to give me a little bit of additional time to try to find an article that's detailing each individual death a little bit more. So I'm going to share my screen. The title of the article is the video, excuse me, is Fears of Texas Serial Killer Grip Austin as 13th Body Washes Up from Lady Bird Lake. So I will start this video.
The Rainey Street Ripper, a name that's been coined for a possible serial killer in Texas, but is this real? Multiple deaths in Austin, Texas, near a popular nighttime hotspot of Rainey Street, have caused people to believe that a murderer is on the loose. But is the Ripper responsible? Does the Rainey Street Ripper even exist? Police say no. Others disagree. We're going to talk with former FBI and CIA agent Tracy Walder, who's been following this case since the first body turned up in 2022. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. So for the last 2 years, dead bodies have been found on a mile-long stretch of the Colorado River between the Lamar Boulevard Bridge and Lady Bird Lake out in Austin, Texas. It's about a half hour's walk from the Rainey Street neighborhood, and that is a trendy night spot with pubs, restaurants, food trucks, the place where the Rainey Street Ripper got his name, or her name. We're going to get to that in a second, because the latest body was found just a week ago, as Austin police had reported.
On July 5th at approximately 5:30 p.m., officers responded to the Waller Beach at Town Lake Metro Park, located near Rainey Street and Cumming Street, in reference to a check welfare urgent call for service, which is a high priority call for service that requires an immediate police response. This call for service was responded to in a timely manner. Call text advised the complainant located a white male with apparent life-threatening injuries to his body. The Austin Fire Department, Austin Travis County EMS, and the Austin Police Department arrived on scene, and unfortunately, the victim was pronounced deceased at approximately 5:45 p.m.
Now, this man is still unidentified, and there were news reports that once he was removed, there were, quote, thick pools of blood between the path and the water's edge. And what kind of injuries could have caused that much bleeding?
They're just some type of blunt force trauma to the body. I don't really have any specific injuries.
Now, Officer Zarling also played down the idea that this death had any connection to the Rainey Street Ripper or any other kind of killer.
This is not being investigated as a homicide at this time, and all investigative steps being taken are routine measures. At this time, this is being considered an isolated incident, and there's no known threat to the general public. I spoke to homicide detectives, and there's no serial killer at this time. At least we don't believe there is one.
However, while police initially reported the cause of death to be blunt force trauma, 2 days later, they changed that to a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and therefore it will not be treated as a homicide. So what about the persistent claims that the Rainey Street Ripper stalks the area, a killer largely targeting gay men who frequent the Rainey Street nightlife? That has been one of the allegations. Terrified residents, they've set up Facebook groups. One has more than 90,000 followers to voice their growing fears that the deaths may in fact be connected.
Okay, so I'm going to pause it here so I can pivot back to the article that I was telling you that I read and found. It was 2 articles I was focused on. The first one just being getting the story out, and the second was more of the details. So I'm going to I already posted it, so let me pull it. I'm going to pull that article. Okay. The article was on mysanantonio.com news. It's dated April 11th, 2024. I guess we can leave this image up showing you where Rainey Street is and how the nightlife is really right in the area of Lady Bird Lake, leads to the lake. So I will leave that up. Okay. 1 second. The title of the article is Rainey Street Serial Killer Rumors Full Timeline at Lady Bird Lake. The author is Christella Jones, is Austin Trending Reporter, and it reads as follows. A series of deaths linked to one Central Texas lake has made locals and true crime enthusiasts curious as to whether or not they're all connected to one perpetrator. Despite law enforcement repeatedly denying any notion of a serial killer in Austin over the past few years, bodies are still being discovered at Lady Bird Lake. There have been 11 bodies found in or near the Austin Lake since 2022. This has reignited rumors of a Rainey Street Killer on the loose in Austin, using the reservoir as a dumping ground. My essay has created a timeline of bodies found in Lady Bird Lake to determine what we know so far. So these are the important details. Lady Bird Lake is a 6-mile river-like reservoir on the Colorado River in Austin. The city created the reservoir in 1960 as a cooling pond for a new power plant. Largely used for recreational purposes, Lady Bird Lake has a surface area of 416 acres and reaches a depth of 18 feet. Swimming is not permitted in the lake, mainly due to the number of drownings that have happened there over the years from strong currents. 2022. So now I'm going to detail out the deaths, okay? That's why this article was important. Ricky Park's body was the first of 4 bodies to be found at the Austin Lake, according to KXAN. Park's body was retrieved near 9 East Avenue on July 14th, 2022. So that was almost 2 years ago. Christopher Gutierrez was found on December 10th near Road and South Lake Boulevard. Austin Police Department found no foul play in each incident, and both Parks and Gutierrez's investigations were closed. That same month, Josu Moreno was found on December 19th near the pedestrian bridge on South Lamar Boulevard, and a man was later charged with murder involving a shooting/crash that claimed Moreno's life. Then Kyle Thornton was found near Congress Avenue Bridge on December 28th, and APD determined no foul play was at fault, and the investigation was also closed. I wish I had a map of this area to show you. One moment, please. I want to see if I had access to a map in the other article. So just give me 1 second. Just want to make sure I did not have a map in that other article. No, I didn't. Okay, it would be nice to see more of a layout of the streets, but I'll continue. Okay. 2023. In 2023, 5 bodies were pulled from Lady Bird Lake. The first was Jason John, found February 13, 2023, near 30 East Avenue. The Travis County medical examiner ruled his death an accidental drowning. Less than a month later, on March 5th, Clifton Axtell's body was found near 1100 West Riverside Drive, and the medical examiner could not determine the cause of death. Then on April 1st, Jonathan Honey was found near 10 Rainey Street, and the medical examiner ruled his death an accidental drowning. I'm sorry, my brain is actually thinking, how is this determined? Was there water in the lungs? For the first person, Jason John, I was just thinking to myself, we have 2 drownings, and was there water in the lungs? We don't have any details. I would like to see the pictures. I would like to know where the bodies were specifically. What was the condition of the bodies? Was there any injuries? Did it look like foul play? Were they clothed? Were they undressed? How long were they there? Like, my brain, I'm reading this out loud, but my brain is thinking of all of these thoughts and questions. So I apologize. Sometimes my reading, it trips up because my brain is processing and thinking of questions. Because we need more details. When you have this many bodies, you don't know if these are victims. Are these victims of a serial killer? You don't know. We don't know the circumstances of each individual person. I just feel that this needs to be looked into more, because these are all male. We don't have their ages and we don't have their race, but they could have been targeted if the circumstances leading to their death involve that nightlife type of setup, where the actor is trying to manipulate them, possibly drug them, possibly get them away, and then later discarding their body in this area of Lady Bird Lake, because they want to have these deaths counted to make them a serial killer. So I don't know. That's where my mind goes, but I'll keep reading. 2 weeks later, Christopher Hayes Clark was found near the 2700th block of Canterbury Street, and APD said in their investigation that no foul play or suspicious circumstances were involved. Yeah, okay. On June 27th, Maggie Dogale was found near the 1000 block of West Seaver Chavez Street. APD said at the time that the case was not being investigated as a homicide. 2024. Two bodies have been found so far this year in and near Lady Bird Lake. On February 5th, 2024, a woman's body was found near 300 West Caesar Chavez Street, and APD told my SA that her death was no longer being investigated as a homicide. Later that month, in early April, a body was recovered near the Lamar Boulevard Bridge, which is one the lake's path, but it was not in or pulled out of Lady Bird Lake like the others, but it was on the path. Reddit and social media users have developed their own theories as to who or what has links to these incidents. However, there are a few underlying similarities between some of the cases, besides the fact that all the bodies were found in or around the proximity of Lady Bird Lake. So I do want to address that. The reason that one might place a victim in the water is to remove evidence. Um, Evidence washes off. Fingerprints, it can destroy any evidence that's left behind, any semen, for example. Um, it may be to also make it hard to identify the victim. The body swells, it bloats up, it may be unrecognizable if it's left in the water for a long period of time, especially in hot weather. So it may be hard to get a fingerprint. You may have to do a DNA test. And that's where you're looking as law enforcement at missing person reports, canvassing that area, talking to see if they were in that area, and finding out once you identify them, you want to know their habits and what they were doing the days and weeks leading up to their passing. So there's a lot of investigative work that has to be done in these individual cases. Let's continue. Last month, one Reddit user indicated in R. Austin that a man confessed to murdering. 1 second, please. I'm going to mute. Okay, I apologize about that. Um, I want to wrap this up with the article. Last month, one Reddit user indicated in r/Austin that a man confessed to murdering people from a popular street downtown known for LGBTQ plus bars and culture. Many people have dubbed the suspected Austin murderer the Rainey Street Killer since 2022, when it was discovered that some of the men that were found dead were gay and may have been targets when going out on the strip. Despite this, the Austin Police Department has repeatedly debunked theories of a serial killer on Rainey Street. So that's the article. I wanted to read that. Now we will get back to the video. Okay. So let's do that now. Okay.
Then there was this report that in April, a bartender on the entertainment strip claimed a patron told him he was the Rainey Street Ripper and that he was attacking men in the nearby waterway, posting on Reddit that the bartender recalled that the man suddenly started talking about killing, and there's a derogatory word that he uses for gay men, from Lady Bird Lake, that he found them from Rainey Street. He was clearly angry and was saying in a low voice, but I know what I heard. And he described the client as a white man in his 40s, about 5'10 tall, with a muscular build, brownish light hair. That same month, a man named Jeff Jones reported he was attacked by this Ripper, but lived to tell the tale.
Do you like having a PO?
Wow. Okay. So I didn't know that. I didn't know that there was someone that was attacked, survived, and then came out with this story that said they were attacked by the same person that they feel is a serial killer. So that's new information to me. So let's keep.
PO box, but are tired of wasting time and money driving to the post office?
He said he'd been drugged, then plummeted 25 feet off a bridge.
You heard what they just said, that he had been drugged. And this is why I am comparing what I feel is similar activity that Jeffrey Dahmer did to what I feel are targeted attacks from a serial killer in targeting possibly gay men in this nightlife area, probably a booming area, an entertainment area, right? Jeffrey Dahmer did the exact same thing. So let me continue playing the video.
Narrowly avoiding being drowned. He woke up in the hospital more than 2 weeks later after doctors had implanted metal rods to hold his back together. And Jeff said that whoever they may be.
Let me pause it one more time. So maybe the drownings are not necessarily how can I put this in a way? If a person is being drugged unknowingly, maybe the person can swim, but if they're under the influence, if they're drugged, they don't have their faculties necessarily to swim to get out of this lake. So they could possibly be drowning in what appears to be an accidental way, when in reality, if a toxicology screen is being done pretty quickly, it could show that they have been drugged. Now, some drugs leave the system very quickly. It's not like, for example, marijuana that would stay in your body, in your hair, etc., for a longer period of time. But some drugs do leave the system pretty quickly, so you're not going to pick up on a toxicology screen if they are being drugged. So I'm going to just rewind this back a little bit to hear this again, because this is not being reported in the news at all.
About killing, and there's a derogatory word that he uses for gay men, from Lady Bird Lake, that he found them from Rainey Street. He was clearly angry and was saying in a low voice, but I know what I heard. And he described the client as a white man in his 40s, about 5'10 tall, with a muscular build, brownish light hair. That same month, a man named Jeff Jones reported he was attacked by this Ripper, but lived to tell the tale. He said he'd been drugged, then plummeted 25 feet off a bridge, narrowly avoiding being drowned. He woke up in the.
Let me pause. So from reading this, there was someone that was found. They weren't found in the water or on the water. They were found like on the path to the lake, right? I wonder if that path would include the bridge. So you had several drownings. You had the shooting crash. So Kyle Thornton was found near Congress Avenue Bridge on December 28th, and APD determined no foul play was at fault, and the investigation was closed. So this particular man was found on the bridge. He's saying, this alleged victim was saying that he was pushed off the bridge 25 feet, plunging 25 feet. And in a drugging, you don't know how the person is going to take it. Maybe others are incapacitated, slurring their speech, not able to walk, don't have their faculties, but it appears that this man, he was able to survive that plunge and not drowning. So let's rewind that back because I'm just learning more and more in this information from Law and Crime Network.
As a homicide. So what about the persistent claims that the Rainey Street Ripper stalks the area, a killer largely targeting gay men who frequent the Rainey Street nightlife? That has been one of the allegations. Terrified residents, they've set up Facebook groups. One has more than 90,000 followers to voice their growing fears that the deaths may in fact be connected. Then there was this report that in April, a bartender on the entertainment strip claimed a patron told him he was the Rainey Street Ripper and that he was attacking men in the nearby waterway. Posting on Reddit that the bartender recalled that the man suddenly started talking about killing, and there's a derogatory word that he uses for gay men, from Lady Bird Lake, that he found them from Rainey Street. He was clearly angry and was saying in a low voice, but I know what I heard. And he described the client as a white man in his 40s, about 5'10" tall, with a muscular build, brownish light hair. That same month, a man named Jeff Jones reported he was attacked by this Ripper, but lived to tell the tale. He said he'd been drugged, then plummeted 25 feet off a bridge, narrowly avoiding being drowned.
I wonder if Mr. Jeff Jones, if he was out at a bar or in this entertainment district that's adjacent to the lake, because how did he get drugged? And then he's saying he plunged from the bridge. Was he out? I would like to know that.
He woke up in the hospital more than 2 weeks later after doctors had implanted metal rods to hold his back together. And Jeff said that whoever they may be just missed the target and I hit the ground. And luckily, because of that, I didn't drown. I just got lucky. Not many people can say they potentially survived a serial killer. So that's a story I can.
Wow. So he didn't fall into the water. He hit the ground. Wow.
Can tell, I guess. Well, let's actually take a closer look at the people who weren't as lucky.
Yeah, let's take a look. So John Honey, he was a 33-year-old white male last seen wearing a black t-shirt and blue jeans. He was missing since 2 a.m. on March 31st, last seen on Rainey Street at a taco truck. Wow.
The bodies of 11 men and 2 women have been found in the last 2 years, and here's what we know about their deaths. So it seems the first was back in July of 2022, 59-year-old Ricky Parks, and then in December of that year, 25-year-old.
So they said Ricky Parks was 59 years old. Okay.
Christopher Gutierrez. The Austin Police Department found no foul play in either death. The investigations have been closed. In December of 2022 also, 45-year-old Josu Moreno's body.
So Josu Moreno was 45. And he was found on December 19th near the pedestrian bridge on South Lamar Boulevard. The man was later charged with his murder.
Body was found. He was the first victim whose death was actually ruled a homicide. Moreno was shot in his car while driving. His vehicle was plunged into the Lady Bird Lake. There was an arrest for his murder, though. Joel Santiago Gonzalez Padron. Hey there, everybody. This episode of Sidebar is sponsored by Truthfinder, and it makes sense since we cover a lot of.
It's going fast forward.
Death was ruled an accident.
We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit.
Accidental drowning. And so was the death of 33-year-old Jonathan Honey 2 months later.
So Jonathan Honey was 33. And that was on April 1st, 2023.
Both men were last seen separately on Rainey Street before their disappearances. Jason was walking home. His family seems to believe there's more to the.
He's referring to Jason John. who was found on February 13th, 2023. They're saying that he died of an accidental drowning as well as Jonathan Honey.
Story of his death, though.
Well, let's think about this. I see, I believe this is Jonathan Honey in this picture. If he was an avid fisherman, it would be very surprising that he didn't know how to swim. But however, if this person is drugged, they just don't have the ability to use their wits and save themselves.
Because Elsie John, Jason's mom, said Jason was 30, Jonathan Honey was 33, 2 in the morning, Rainey Street. So there were some similarities in the case. And she fears that more men may end up dead. We don't know how many Jasons and how many Jonathans are going to be losing their lives again, and this is not acceptable. Elsie John said that her family is going through such unimaginable sorrow and despair over the past few weeks that they do not want another family to face the heartbreaking pain that they've experienced when they were searching for their son. And she asked police to make all the necessary actions to protect the life of the people of Austin near and at Lady Bird Lake. Then we have 40-year-old Clifton Axtell, was found in Lady Bird Lake around the same time as Jason and Jonathan after he went missing near a downtown bar. He was a married father of 2.
So he went missing near a downtown bar, and he's 40 years old. It's just hard to think that someone 40 years old with a wife and a child would just go.
So death was ruled undetermined. 2 weeks later, 30-year-old Christopher Hayes Clark's death was said to have had no foul play or suspicious circumstances. His death and those of 3 additional people, including 2 women, were not investigated as homicides. There was an unidentified woman, age unknown. Then we have Maga Dogal, discovered in June 2023, age also unknown. And then the unidentified man found most recently on July 5th. The autopsies on the people who died this year were not available, but police say their bodies showed no signs of.
Why is the autopsies taking so long? And what were the toxicology screens? Were any of them involving any illicit drugs, and particularly they are drugs?
Trauma. The latest, as we said, appeared to have been from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Now, I should tell you that police investigations here, they have consistently found that most of the deaths are accidental and that they share a combination of alcohol and easy access points to Lady Bird Lake. Austin Parks and Rec have installed better lighting along with fences and warning signs near the lake. So far, there's no surveillance cameras. I should point that out. But now to sum it up,
maybe they should get those surveillance cameras to figure out, with this number of deaths, what is going on in this area. If you kind of dealt with the access by putting up the gates, that may help prevent someone from falling in. However, you want to put eyes in this area if it's easily accessible.
Austin Police Department Assistant Chief Jeff Greenwald said, there are a lot of allegations that there's a serial killer, but there's no proof or evidence in any of our investigations to sustain that. And police say that while each incident occurred at the lake, the circumstances, exact locations, and demographics surrounding these cases vary. Some of the cases remain under investigation. Well, now I want to turn to Tracy Walder, former FBI agent, CIA officer, national security contributor at News Nation, and author of The Unexpected Spy. Tracy, so good to have you. And I will tell you, I didn't know that you have been following this for years.
Yes, well, thank you so much for having me, Jesse. In a way, I feel like I'm kind of banging my head against a wall with this. I have been making TikToks and Instagrams and going on News Nation to talk about this for about 2 years now. It's something, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I tend to sometimes be overly logical, but it's more than just Austin. I mean, we have the same situation going on in Chicago, in the Chicago River. 16 bodies have been found since 2022. In Austin, 13 have been found since 2022. And
let me just pause what she's saying here. I wonder if she's trying to link similar behavior to maybe a mobile serial killer, someone that when an area gets hot, they travel to a different area commit similar acts. And if that area gets hot, they'll go to another area, a different city, because you've had serial killers that have done that before. These are typically serial killers that don't have kids or wife, major commitments, or if they do have a family, they may have opportunity to travel through their employment. So that's an interesting take on her saying that and comparing this Austin, Texas area with Chicago, Illinois. That's a pretty, nice distance away. Let's listen to what she has to say. She has some experience and credentials.
The consistency, I think, with which we're seeing this, in my opinion, doesn't seem accidental and doesn't seem random. And that's why I wish that we were looking into this more and maybe there was more interagency communication.
Let's explore that a little bit. And yes, I will couple that and say, I have been on with Tracy so many times. You are one of the most logical, rational, reasonable people. You do not jump to conclusions. So for you to say something seems off here when we have 13 bodies, now someone could look at this and say, wait a minute, these could all be accidents. These could all be people getting drunk, and it's a nightlife area. Do you suspect that there is a serial killer here, or do you suspect that their deaths might just be more than what they're initially determined to be?
What if I told you your child needs to be ignored by you more? Sounds backwards, but if you learn to carefully...
Oh, these are ads. Okay.
That's a great question. And I'm going to give somewhat of a confusing answer, if that's okay. I think it's a combination of both. I do think that some of these are truly accidental. This is an area that's right near University of Texas at Austin. It is an area, right, where people are over consuming alcohol, and it wasn't heavily fenced prior to all of this. And there were, as you mentioned before, very easy access points. However, I think some of these deaths, particularly the ones that had been labeled undetermined, and then the fact the police went from blunt force trauma to gunshot wound to the head so quickly within a matter of hours, that lends itself, in my opinion, to the idea that there may be someone out there doing this purposely. And I want to take it one step further and say that this may be going on in other states as well. And I think that is the concern that I have. When we see an uptick of bodies being found in Austin, we see a downtick of bodies in Chicago. And then when we see an uptick of bodies in Chicago, there's a downtick of bodies in Austin. It's very strange.
What do you mean by that? Because again, somebody could say, look, this is an area, like there's a lot of areas across the country where it might be an area where people, they commit a crime. This is where they dump evidence. This is where they dump bodies. This could be an area where it's frequented. But what do you mean by the connection between Chicago and Austin and when that death rate? Walk us through exactly what you're talking about.
Right. So as I mentioned, I've been following this for a couple of years. And so I just started basically doing my own research, to be honest with you. And it really started out with something called the smiley face killer up in New York. The problem with that is that they were saying, oh, the person had to leave a smiley face in graffiti. And I think that just happened to be random graffiti at the site of a crime. And I think a lot of these got kind of dismissed as that they weren't all connected because they didn't have a smiley face. And I think that was misidentified at the beginning. But what I'm seeing is you'll see a cluster of 2 to 3 bodies being pulled out in pretty quick succession within the span of, I'd say, a week or two of the Chicago River, and then nothing for a few months in Austin. And then in Austin, you will see the reverse happening. So this cluster of bodies kind of show.
I wonder if she has tracked it in such a way that she could lay this out, not just stating it, but demonstrate it, maybe showing a map of this area in Chicago and giving us the time frame in comparison to a map in Austin, Texas, and giving us the time frame, because I haven't heard anybody say this, and it would be nice if she could support that with some documentation. So I think it's an interesting idea, though.
Showing up 2, 3, and then nothing in Chicago for a while. And so it makes me wonder, is this the same person going back and forth? Is this some kind of a trucker route? Right? That's where I start to wonder, are these the same person? Are these different people?
But how difficult would it be for one person to keep on doing this?
I mean, in my opinion, not very. We have seen serial killers crossing state lines multiple times, particularly ones that have jobs that are transient in nature, right? We have seen that. That has been documented. One of my FBI colleagues just wrote a book actually on that as well. And so I don't want to say it's easy. Of course, it's not easy, any stretch. But part of me does wonder if maybe we're seeing something even more unusual, and that it's a group, right, who's doing this in different cities. That's highly unusual. We've never seen something like that before. But in this day and age of social media and secure channels, it wouldn't surprise me if someone did something like that.
Are you also looking at the victimology? You're looking at similarities between the victims. What do you make of that?
Yeah, so this
Before she responds, I kind of want to say what I was picking up. When I'm looking at the pictures of the various men, it seems that they're not young. They're not, I would say, under the age of 25. So it makes me feel like these are experienced men. Um, they have some life experience behind them. I would not label them as very youthful. Um, I don't know if all of them are single or not. I know the one man that they showed with his son, he was supposed to be married. Um, so I guess we can't really focus in just sexuality, but are some of the men possibly um, gay? I don't know, but I was looking at the age. So if there is a serial killer, they are targeting a certain age group. I would say over 30 years old. But let's hear what she has to say. We do have the one black male, which is out of the group of where we've seen primarily white males. So that is also something that I saw.
similarities, in my opinion, just from the research I've done, there seems to be a bigger age span in Austin than there is in Chicago, in terms of just age, right? We're looking at in some cases it's like a 20-year age gap, but the reality is most of them are, I'd say, kind of upper middle class males. Yes, we have some females that are mixed into there. I don't think sexuality plays a role because they have been all different sexualities that I have seen. There are some that have been straight, some that have been gay, all, kind of all across the board. So I'm not sure that that plays a role in the victimology, but all of them also seem to be educated as well. And, probably had money to spend, quite frankly.
Attention retirees, if you're willing to be at your computer from 9 a.m. to 10:45 a.m.
frankly, at these bars.
And what about the Austin PD's response? They're basically denying that there's a serial killer, insisting that there were other causes for the deaths. They closed a lot of these investigations on several of these cases. Could it be that's just what it is? There's nothing more to report here. Or is it the counter, in your experience? They do not want to frighten the public because they may have more information at this point and don't want to alarm everybody that someone could be out there.
I understand the idea behind not informing the public immediately, right? If you don't want to scare them, I've done that myself and holding on to information at the FBI, not releasing it. However, in my opinion, there's a fine line between not scaring the public, but also ensuring public safety, which is their job as well. And so I think if they're holding on to that information, which I'm not too sure that they are, part of me just wonders that this is because they haven't been talking to other police departments. Also, the fact that the autopsy reports are not readily available, a lot of times you can get your hands on those, piques my interest, is interesting to me. And some of these have been ruled as undetermined. And I think that's interesting as well, because most of these bodies were not in the water for that long. I think we know that unfortunately, when bodies are in water for a very long period of time, obviously that can degrade evidence and then lead to not knowing a cause of death. But most of these bodies were not in the water for, weeks and months.
Why would they be determined to be undetermined?
If again, water from a forensic perspective is the worst in terms of evidence preservation. It's really difficult to preserve forensic evidence. And so if it was a case of strangulation and a body decomposed and a hyoid bone wasn't broken, I'm not sure that you would know that that was their cause of death. Also, maybe they couldn't get a true toxicology panel, right, on someone to decide whether or not maybe they had alcohol poisoning. And so I think those could be some of those things that sort of lead to undetermined, that they're not going to cause, they're not going to call it a natural death, but they're not going to call it a homicide yet.
You mentioned that law enforcement should be looking at outside agencies for assistance here. What would happen if they got the FBI involved? What assistance, what tools would that serve here?
So the FBI has to be invited. That's just typically how it works. In any kind of state or local case, they have to be invited. Austin PD is a large and robust police department, so they definitely have a lot of resources, right? This is not a city that is small by any stretch. However, I believe that the FBI, from a digital forensic perspective, might be quicker in terms of the help that they can give them, because I think all of us, including these victims, probably left a very heavy digital trail in terms of what their last movements were before their bodies went into the water. Not to mention any of these bars. I know that there's no surveillance cameras yet in these particular areas, but a lot of these bars have cameras. There's, traffic cameras, those kinds of things. And the FBI has more manpower to just go through that more quickly.
I guess here's an interesting point. If you're talking about a general location, right, and you are a serial killer, wouldn't you're almost kind of, and look, I could also say this about the suspected Gilgo Beach serial killer, and I don't mean to be crass about this, but wouldn't you want to diversify where you commit your crimes or where you dispose of your bodies? I mean, I would imagine now that they know this area, wouldn't there be more patrols? Wouldn't there be more surveillance? There be a way to see, well, if there really is somebody doing this, we know where they're going.
I don't think that that's a cross question. I think that that makes a lot of sense. But like you mentioned, in the alleged Gilgo Beach killer, he was dumping them for the most part in the same area,
Right. Yeah.
around the beach. And sometimes it does boil down to where serial killers are comfortable and where they have this hunting ground, I guess, if you will. And the reality is yes, they have installed fencing, but they
Yeah, it was when she said it, I was thinking it. I do believe that serial killers do go into areas where they're comfortable, where they're familiar. In many cases, they're going to repeat what works for them. And if they have some control, they want to control the things that they're aware of. So if they're used to going into certain areas, they want to continue that because that's what's worked for them. And they don't want to get caught. So if they're doing their activity at a certain time, they may repeat that. If they're dumping any bodies in a certain area, they may repeat that. They're going to repeat what's been working for them. And if these bodies have been placed in the lake in this area since 2022, they may continue on because remember, they didn't have cameras. They didn't have law enforcement really concerned. And law enforcement is saying there is no threat. There is nothing to worry about. There is no serial killer. So, and they didn't take any measures to shore up until now this area. So, and they still don't have cameras. So they may just continue doing what has been working for them.
They have not installed surveillance cameras thoroughly along that route yet. And this person may know that. And that's why they may feel comfortable in that they're not going to be caught there. And again, you have to remember, this is a highly trafficked bar area. And so I think there might be a sense of ego and that they know they're not going to get caught because there's so many people around.
What are the next steps you're looking for in terms of detecting patterns, maybe not just in that area, but across the country?
Yeah, that's kind of my point and my research into all of this is there have been these clusters that have occurred. And my hope is that these law enforcement agencies are talking to each other. But my concern is that when you have APD, I guess, dismissing it so quickly, and maybe they aren't in private, maybe they are in public, but maybe they aren't in private, but dismissing it so quickly as not being a serial killer, then I worry that they're not reaching out to Chicago PD to say, hey, what are some trends that you're seeing? Let's see if they match up to some of ours and doing that work. But again, I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, right? And so I don't know if APD is doing that.
Do you think it's complicated by?
I just want to pause right there. I honestly would not see the Austin Police Department reaching out to the Chicago Police Department due to distance. Maybe they would be looking at some states that are closer, or they could put together a write-up of all of these bodies that have been found since 2022 and send it out nationwide and see if any of the other states are experiencing something similar in the search for a possible mobile serial killer. But I wouldn't think that they would just reach out to Chicago. Why not Memphis? Why not somewhere in Florida, somewhere in California, in different areas, right? So I don't think they would target Chicago, which is not Southern, it's more in the Midwest.
The fact that it has been amplified by certain online content creators. I mean, we didn't come out today and say there's a serial killer on the loose. We're trying to understand what is exactly happening, but certain people have already come up with theories and speculation. I imagine that's something that complicates not only law enforcement's investigation, but their response to it as well.
My name is Lucy, and I have to figure out who I am.
I think it absolutely complicates things in general. I think social media, I mean, we saw this in the Idaho case, right? Really complicates things, right? It falsely accuses people. I mean, it puts people down the wrong path in terms of evidence. I have to be honest, even I get flack sometimes for talking.
Wait a minute now, they talking about one of my cases. I don't have anything coming up specific on the Brian Koberger prosecution or the Idaho 4 murders. I was going to turn my attention to learning more about the roommates, in particular the 2 surviving roommates, because I don't feel like I really know a lot about them. There's nothing that is just screaming out, hey, look into me. So we will see, but they are talking about this as a case that got a lot of attention. So I'm going to stop it here because I don't want to get off topic too much. But do you think, and you can put it in the comments, do you think they may have a serial killer on their hand in Austin, Texas? Do you think the police are looking into the individual deaths thoroughly? Are they asking questions? Are they talking to the family? Are they going through the person's cell phone? Are they looking into the days and weeks leading up to the deaths? These are look like normal, healthy people, mature people, right? Someone that may not be negligent in going into the lake and drown. I just don't believe in a lot of coincidences. Again, it is because of the area, the nightlife, this person coming forward and saying that he was drugged. Do you think that there could be someone drugging men? I want to just say gay men, but men in general, as a target, mostly primarily white males, right? Over the age of 30 in Austin, Texas. Leave in the comments below what you think. Tell me what you think. I think it's possible. Just thinking about some of the behavior of Jeffrey Dahmer, even though he didn't travel from city to city. Now, Ted Bundy, he did as a serial killer go from different states, but this just reminds me more on the level of Jeffrey Dahmer staying in one city, going out into the entertainment nightlife, trying to pick up men, bring them home, and then killing them. So let me know what you think. Please remember, stay smart, stay safe, stay savvy. I will keep you up to date if there's any more discoveries or information that comes out. So I want to just thank you for spending this time with me. I really appreciate that. I want you to have a great Saturday afternoon, okay? Bye, everybody. Please leave your comments below also.